So, welcome back. I'm so excited to have a dear friend and teacher here with me, Erin Rose. And we have a lot to cover today, but one of the reasons I invited Erin to join the podcast is aside from her beautiful self expression and wisdom and mastery, I feel that Erin has a lot to say and a lot of wisdom to share about one of my favorite topics, which is about the archetype of the mother. And so I'm so excited to have her here and have this conversation. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Um,
Mm.
and I was thinking about it. I was going to tell you when we logged on how we were going to record this over the summer, and I was really excited about that. Because I don't think we ever texted about this, but I think the date we chose was the Cancer new moon, which is all
Mm,
about mother energy.
uh-huh.
And now we're actually doing it in another sacred celestial window, which is the eclipse season, the eclipse portal. And before I hit record, Erin and I were talking about this eclipse and all the feelings, and Erin was sharing that she has a Cancer moon. And
Mhm.
I'm guessing, so Erin's a Aries rising, Aries sun, I now know. And
Mhm.
as Aries rising, that means that your signs really align with the traditional placements of signs in the zodiac. So that
Mhm.
would indicate that you not only have a Cancer moon, but your Cancer moon is in the fourth house, which is all
Mhm.
about home, mother. The moon rules Cancer, and the moon rules the fourth house. So having a Cancer moon is very special because the moon, in a way, belongs in Cancer. Not that the moon doesn't belong everywhere that the moon is when we're all born, but it's very potent. It's very archetypal. I don't know if you've ever reflected on that.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember when I got a reading that was reflected to me of planets feeling comfortable in the placement that they're in the house they're in. Um, and that the way I've the mirror that gave me was this feeling very comfortable in the world, in my body, in my life, and with stints of definitely not feeling it, but overall, this sort of, um, belonging that I've always had, and there are cultural aspects to that, for sure, as far as being like a white woman, and in this lifetime. I think that privilege contributes to feeling at home in the world, and but also this deeper sense of belonging that I'm grateful for.
So beautiful. And she also told me she's an Aries sun, which I never would have guessed. But I'm curious to unpack a little bit more. And I
I
also
mean,
love
yeah. I'm just laughing because I'm an Aries sun, Aries rising, and I really feel like without my Cancer moon, I would be an asshole. I don't know if I can say that on podcast, but I can see the ways that the Cancer moon, that mother quality really brings a balance to the heat and the drive and the how much I love sensation and being in my body and going full out. There's this balancing aspect that I'm so grateful for.
It's so funny because I don't experience you, or I should say, I haven't experienced you
Mhm.
in the Aries yet. I wanted to start with a little bit of a meet cute about how I met or know Erin. And I think when you really came on my radar was last year, Memorial Day weekend. I went to a beautiful event that a mutual friend of ours organized in Topanga, Peter Opperman. And it was a beautiful event for community and weaving and dreaming about our shared future. And Erin led an insanely beautiful and funny and just fun dance to get us all in our bodies. And I just remember really loving her energy. And it's funny because I feel like I may have seen you around or maybe on social, and you always looked familiar to me. And I'm not sure if that's because we overlapped and had mutual friends in our New York eras or just like a soul
Mm,
recognition. But I just
mm,
remember getting to experience your gifts and your magic there, and then it took some time, but I guess only maybe 4 or 5 months later, I joined a beautiful retreat Erin put on in Joshua Tree, and there I got to receive from her more fully and see her gifts. But what the Aries sun reminds me of is when I was on that retreat, someone else told me they knew you from your years teaching at the class. And that's a way more,
mhm.
I've never taken the class. I have a lot of friends who did. It's kind of like a rite of passage in New York, but that's a
Yeah.
way different, way more outward expression, or I don't know how to describe it, a more invigorating practice than the reflection of Erin that I met.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's different. It's a different way of being in with energy, that practice.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful retreat in so many ways. I remember just arriving and like feeling I could exhale and I was just in the right place. And there were certain things we spoke about, and I think also things we didn't speak about, but I just picked up on in your essence and in your being that I wanted to share with the world or with whoever's listening in our time together.
Mm,
So, the inspiration for today was really about this theme of mother energy, the archetype of the mother. So, to catch anyone up who's new to me or this space, a lot of my personal healing journey has been working with archetypal energies. And I consider the archetypal mother one of the most primordial, original archetypes on earth. For me, archetypes are energetic patterns or imprints that are beyond time and space. They're pre-verbal, they're beyond words. In a way, I would say they're even like beyond the mind. They're quite in the world of Carl Jung, archetypes are a sort of imprinting on this planet. They exist in the subconscious, unconscious, and then we have conscious expressions of them. But for me, studying archetypes, whether it was through my training in archetypal astrology or Carl Jung's works, or even earlier in my spiritual journey, Caroline Myss has a wonderful book about archetypes called Sacred Contracts.
mhm,
I started to discover these imprints, these universal concepts that felt like source code for me, that really explained a lot of our conditioning or imprinting. The other favorite archetype for me is the queen or even the king. Queens and kings existed across language, across space, across geography, across time, many, many kingdoms across time and space on this planet. So there's something about these energies that are universal that we can all tap into. We all come from the mother, and the mother is also Mother Earth, right? The divine mother in some senses.
mm,
So I know that you speak the language of archetypes as well. I'm curious what the archetype or even the word mother means to you.
mm. Yeah. As you were speaking of the archetypes, what really connected for me in this moment is how archetypes give us a way into our own values, to qualities that we want to experience, lean into, learn from, maybe push away from. They're avenues of relating to life. uh, that are more accessible than just when we're in this personal contemplation of, okay, now I want to be the mother. Well, what the heck does that mean? And so we have these cross-cultural qualities. I love that there is a feeling sense to them, and there's values, and for me, the values that the mother carries are this grounded love that to me is the source that we come from and the source we return to. I really believe in a benevolent universe, a benevolent earth, and the mother evolving now because as we've talked about, I've stepped into being a stepmom and hope to have more children at some point. This what I really feel in the mother, what's matured in my understanding of it is the level of like resiliency and grit that the mother has that is not often doesn't often lead the way. Normally that's the archetype of the warrior or even the king. It's the one that's like there's a strength. With the mother, she's often given the more domiciled, gentle qualities, which are there. But what I love about the mother is that it really is such a presence, a wakefulness, a companion in through this life that is like, no matter what, I will love you. And sometimes my love will be hard to handle because it might be presenting you with ways that as a child, you're not in alignment with your own truth. But I will never leave, just like the earth will never leave us. We're tethered until we give our bodies away. Um, so that's what's alive for me most in this moment is like really bringing the mother into this. It's like fleshing her out. That original goddess kind of sculpture where it's this rotund, powerful, huge breast, huge belly, skin, like spherical aspect. And that's really what I think about when I think about the mother. It's so dimensional and deep. um, and accessible for all of us because we all, whatever relationship we have with the mother, we all come from a womb and we all come from the womb of the earth.
I love that. I remember hearing at some point a a woman's womb is the only entry point to life on Earth. Like there's literally no other way onto this planet than through a woman's womb. And I think that we forget that. I think we forget the power of the feminine and the power of the mother. But I
Mhm.
love how you want to flesh this out. I think you meant it literally, like flesh out the roundness of her figure, right? And I would love to flesh it out also figuratively, these different
Mm,
relevant archetypes of the mother, because the archetypes are universal and they are accessible. And I heard you start to allude to some. So,
mhm,
this idea of the Earth Mother, this idea of our Divine Mother, um, I connect with what many people call the Great Mother. It's the mother of
mm,
all mothers, the mother of humankind, the mother of Earth. For me, what
mhm,
I've seen in visualizations and lucid meditations and journeys is always this great mother figure who has just reminded me that I come from her, that I belong to her, that I'm her child, that I'm made in her image in some senses. So
mm,
that's one thing that comes up for me. Another thing that comes up for me is this idea of the triple goddess. So the
mm,
maiden, the mother, and the crone. as three stages of the feminine or a woman's life. And not that it has to be so linear. We can have mother energy at any point in our life. We can actually have crone energy at any point in our life.
Mhm.
But the journey between those stages and the gifts of each stage.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
the
how they're all in some way, they're all aspects of the mother too. Like that journey of how we relate to life as a maiden, how we relate when we are in that sense of mother, how we relate to ourselves and each other when we're crone. But the whole thing is a relationship. And to me, that's the main thing about the mother is she's down for a relationship. She's like, I'm the mother because there are I care for child, I care for world, I'm in relationship to it, the mother that locks herself up in the tower and is like, "I'm just gonna do my own thing." That mother causes a lot of harm because she's not in relationship to what is hers to care for, what is hers to hold well.
I think I struggle with that. I it's not that I don't agree, but I think that I want to flesh it out more because I think I struggle with images of the mother that are out of balance, like the mother who does want to lock
Mm,
herself away. In a sense, I relate to her. I
mhm,
understand her. Who wouldn't want to lock themselves away from the world that we're
totally.
living in, or a world that has so much misunderstanding or lack of appreciation for the gifts of the mother, right? We've always taken the gifts and the devotion of the mother for granted, whether we're talking about the earth, and I'm not speaking politically, or if we're
Yeah.
talking about our own mothers or the elders that sort of mother society. So maybe we can have a conversation or try to illuminate for people. I actually want to do it both for the archetype of the mother and also the archetypal feminine of being in balance and not
Mm,
in balance. And again, for people who are
great.
new to this field or work, the same way that mother is an archetype, we can think about masculine and feminine as archetypal energies. So this is not gender we're speaking about, it's
Right.
an energetic force on this planet. So the same way that plants have masculine and feminine, there is a gendered component to those words, but there is an archetypal energy. And for people who are familiar with this language, we know that no matter what gender you are, we both have feminine and masculine principles and archetypes within us. So when we speak about the feminine archetype and flesh out what it means for the feminine to be in balance or her higher aspects versus, let's say, her shadow aspects. So we can use the language of gift aspects as higher aspects or shadow as
Mhm.
lower, out of balance aspects. I want to speak into that for every person on earth, what that means.
Mm. I mean, I love it's so beautiful because we're talking about the mother, and to me, it's like what allows us to go into those conversations about gifts and shadow is that unwavering love that the mother has that allows us to inquire into what are the aspects? Where am I? Where are we in balance, out of balance? And the mother helps us do that without shame. It not like you're good, you're bad, or like, wait, sometimes we are going to be in an expression that isn't quote balanced and it's not wrong. And the mother is the one that helps us say, okay, we can love that and learn from it and also have the agency to bring ourselves into alignment. She's the great teacher. The mother is the great teacher. And oftentimes what I found in my life is the way that the mother courts us back to our alignment, our balance, our safety, our vitality, the expressions of that in a human body, a human mind, the way she does that is through that compassionate love and steady presence. Mm. So I like the meta aspect of this conversation that we can even say, let's go towards shadows for a second, because we're in the energy of we're with the force that can say, yeah, I'll hold you and love you as you do that. And there won't be any judgment or shame. It just gets to be a conversation of deepening and expanding. Mm.
Totally. Even as I was listening to you speak, I feel another way of saying that the mother brings us back into balance is that she brings us back into our hearts. She's a reminder of
Mhm.
what matters. She's a portal into unconditional love. They often say that you can't really appreciate the love you receive from your parents, and I would add, especially from your mom, until you become a mom yourself. And one of my favorite teachers, I took a beautiful course with her, Dr. Erica Matlock, on the spiritual initiation of motherhood. And that's one of her biggest reflections upon becoming a mom in her 40s was like, how did I live on this planet for 40 years and not know how much my mom loved me
Yes. Right.
until she became a mom? So we can use the language of balance, but for me, it really is this unconditional love that's at the heart of who we are, at our center. And I love that you're bringing that in, this ability to reflect on internal alignment, external alignment, without shame, without judgment, from a place of agency and knowing our
Mhm.
power and wanting to do more or wanting to give more.
Mm.
And I think that's a lot of what you offer in the world. I know you have your private mentorship, and I definitely wanted to dive into one of the frameworks that you shared with me and the group that was on the retreat with you, which is about the mothers, about what you call the two mothers. Actually, it's a nice time to share it because it can really help us round out this conversation about the shadow and the light
Yeah.
aspects and how can the mother be an asset or a tool or a path into what really matters or into our purpose.
Yeah. It's so beautiful because every quality has its shadow and its gift, and the shadow being not the wrong expression at all, but more like that which brings opportunity to become clearer. It's like how the underworld, the archetypal underworld is the place we go to transmute, to refine, to like get into the grit and emerge, mud to lotus. There's a lot of metaphors and images swirling through my mind, so I'll try and stay on track with your beautiful invitation. So the two mothers is an archetypal framework that I experienced in a meditation. I was sitting and kind of in this inquiry of the quality of presence or love that I was needing in the moment in order to come to what I recognize now as a sense of safety and connection, commonly called, what I was experiencing in the moment was some version of fear. And I had this image, this experience, visualization come through that I was sitting in a field, and oftentimes if I'm going into a visualization, I'll go into take myself into the field of the heart. And for me, that's an edgeless field that has wildflowers and blue sky. Looks probably like something you'd find in Colorado. um, and I had these two figures walk forward, and there was one that I from growing up Catholic, I relate to as like the Mother Mary, one of the great archetypes. This I love you no matter what. Lay your head in my bosom. Let me wrap you in a blanket. Let me bring you tea. Let me kiss you on the forehead, stroke your hair, and remind you just how loved you are, no matter what. Like there's nothing you could ever do to remove yourself from my love. She came forward, and it was just like, that was so good. It was like honey. It was mother's milk of her love. I was nourished. And then the second figure was more aligned with my experience in working with the Hindu archetypes, deities, the goddesses of Durga and even Kali, the great mother and the dark mother, she's sometimes called. And the second mother that was there, she was on my other side, and she was so strong. She had this she had a sword, and my awareness was that that sword is a very loving sword that cuts through illusion, which is what Kali Ma's sword does in those great stories. Cuts through lies, cuts through illusion, like not enoughness, cut off its head. And the second mother, once I receive the nourishment of the first mother, I can actually turn towards the second mother, who
Mm.
really is the initiatory mother. She's like, you're used to operating, thinking a certain way. I call you forward to really stand in your dignity. What you're doing, let me show you. Let me be the clarity that says, look, when you do this, karma, cause and effect, this consequence is created. There's no shame because I'm nourished by the love of the first mother, so that the love of the second mother, which we could call tough love, she's like, I'm not going to let you keep doing something that's causing you or any other being harm because I love you so much. First mother and second mother. First mother, I often find we need the first mother first because we need that sense of like, I'm okay, something loves me. I'm I'm really, especially a lot of the women I work with, we're not normally blaming anyone else. The pattern tends to be like, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? How can I improve? Beautiful self-responsibility. We need that bigger force that says, I'm in it with you and I love you no matter what. So that we can really receive the constructive feedback from wisdom that says, let's do this in a way that really aligns for you. And so often when I'm working with people, sometimes I'll bring that into the conversation and say, if we lean into the first mother, if we lean into the second mother, sometimes I'm embodying it, like which
Mhm.
version do I need to be to support this space right now? Also, when I teach, that's something I play with, having that balance of both so that we're not, because the shadow of the first mother, where it can sort of fall into territory that's not supportive is when we become infantilized or we sort of collapse into the mother, the way we kind of become like, I'm just going to stay sucking on the breast for my whole life. I'm going to be the child. Sometimes we need to do that for a little while, but to then really have the like, great, the nourishment then becomes agency. Who do I want to be? And the shadow of the second mother, without the first mother, it can get cold. It can feel distant. It can feel like doesn't have that sense of connection.
Yeah, I definitely relate to everything you're sharing. I feel one of the biggest things I learned in the 7+ years of my spiritual journey and just like personal growth journey is the importance of having the resourcing of the first mother, whether you see it as an archetypal mother or not. just the foundation or reservoir of love
Oh,
and
yeah.
holding and feeling held and belonging to do
Yeah.
big and hard things. And
Yeah.
what we're talking about a lot, when I say big and hard things, a lot of people that I work with, you probably work with in our sphere, are people who are here to bring a new reality, who are here to break a cycle or a pattern. So we'll talk about, I still do want to talk about some of the shadows and gifts of the archetypal mother and the feminine, but I want to say
Mhm.
that if the second mother is speaking to you, whether that comes through Erin's embodiment or someone else, a teacher, through a dream, whatever it is, she's calling you forward into your greatness. She's calling you into a big mythical task. She wouldn't
Mhm.
be here if your life wasn't mythical and if you weren't being
Mm.
called
Mm.
into a powerful new expression. Because
Mm.
at the end of the day, and we've alluded to this, the mother gives life. She creates.
Yeah.
She is almost the most, not almost, she is the most creative archetype on earth, probably, right? She creates worlds through her love, through her embodiment. And whether it's the loving mother and Mother Mary and the
Mm.
mother's milk and her breast, or the Kali who's here to cut through illusion, she's calling you into something big, but it's on you or it's on us to know what to reach for and when we need each one and the other. And as you so beautifully said, avoid the trappings of actually either mother, either the first mother who just wants to keep you on her breast, or the second mother who just wants to keep you like constantly shedding and transforming and
Mm.
trying to improve upon yourself,
Right.
which is
I mean,
another, I think, shadow that maybe you were
yeah.
alluding to a little bit. The self responsibility that doesn't have time or space for just being, just nourishing ourselves.
Yeah. It's where that sense of shed and transform and expand gets muddied by our capitalist, our progress driven culture that says like, you're not there yet, keep going. And that's why that first mother that says like, look, you're already the thing. You're already it. You are. It's right now you've forgotten for a moment. And that's why the way back to remembering is to receive that love and lean into it. And from a nervous system perspective, create a condition of connection, relationship, in it togetherness that really helps soothe and soften. Okay, I'm here. So that the second the information that's like, great, now how do we want to work with this in our relationship to life? How do we want to keep growing and expanding? Because that's one of the gifts of having a body for a limited amount of time is we get to keep changing and growing. So the second mother says, all right, are there any ways that we want to course correct? Are there any amends that need to be made between you, between you and anything? Is your conscience clear? I think is one of the questions that the second mother asked. That integrity of when no one else is watching, who am I? How am I? What's the quality of my thoughts, my words, my actions? And she really holds us to that caliber of like, I love you and you belong to this world. You are a part of this world. And when you operate in that integrity and alignment, the reciprocal nourishment that can happen both for you and from you, that amplifies. And it's the obstructions to love that are created by our own misalignments. We can soften those. We can release those. We can
Yeah,
cut
and
off
if
their
I can
head.
add, oh, okay. Yeah, I wanted to add, and maybe that's the cutting off your head portion, that it's also not so personal. A lot of what we're chopping off or shedding or the untruths that she's calling us to confront are our collective wounds, collective imbalances. We're living in one of the most polarized, most imbalanced times on earth. And no matter what your language is or life journey or purpose is, if you're called to this work, oftentimes through your own embodiment, you're bringing that balance back. Something I often struggle with, and that's why I'm wanting to name it, is maybe I'll frame it differently. One of the biggest gifts for me in studying archetypes came from one of my favorite teachers back in the day, Caroline Miss, who teaches almost
Mm,
exclusively about archetypes. And when she would teach about the idea of an archetype and our pattern and our pain and our wounding, she would often say this one sentence, that it's not personal, that archetypes are universal. So the imprinting or the pain or what I often teach about, which you also named, is this collapse, the feminine that just wants to collapse and hide. It's what
mhm,
she says is that it's not personal. Our wounding is not personal. It's intimate. It's intimate. It's the most intimate details or expression in our life, a familial relationship, a love, a romantic relationship, a best friendship where we experience the wounding, but it's not personal. There's a difference between intimate and personal. And the fact that a
mhm,
lot of this stuff is universal, which is why I find group sessions and group containers and retreats and programs the most healing. There's definitely a space for one-on-one work and seeing our own patterns or our own mythology or woundology more clearly. And there's a huge alchemy, I think, especially for the feminine in group spaces. So we
mhm,
can talk about cutting off the head, but the head that we're cutting off, the monster that we're clearing, oftentimes is generational, something that we inherited in our family line, in our culture, in our country of birth. I don't know if you want to add to that, but I think it's important to acknowledge, and it's one thing that's missing from a lot of healing, I think, that happens in the West.
mm. It's a beautiful point. And that piece that Carolyn Miss brings up of like it's not personal, it's intimate. To me, she's going directly to the confusion that would create shame. Because I think along with a sort of educational model that many of us were, brought into of like, you learn this thing, you do well, you get the grade. If you don't do well, you get the bad grade. There's a sort of like, you can do it right or you can do it wrong. And with that, it's not personal, but it's intimate. To me, that goes right into the place where we might mistake, oh, I've done something. I haven't done it right. I've been whatever bad or whatever that means. Like, this is my fault. And rather saying there's an agency that's available when something isn't about us doing something wrong, but rather widening the scope to say this is something we belong to, and no one actually needs to be blamed. This is like grist for the mill of our awakening.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's what makes the head cut off still loving, because you're like, you don't need this. No one's needed this.
Well, you can tell the story better than I, but when the head cuts off, something grows back. Is that right?
Yeah, well, with Kali and Durga, and I won't claim to be, you know, I've heard these stories told told to me. Um, I'm sure there are many people who are more knowledgeable about the mythology, but from what I understand, when the great battle happened and the demons were overrunning the universe, the masculine energy could not do it. They knew they needed the feminine because the feminine can move through and create any reality it wants. So they called forward the goddess, and the goddess Durga, the great mother, came. And so she goes out into the battlefield, and this demon, I believe he's a bison in the story, he starts laughing at her, and he's like, "What are you gonna do, woman? Like, look at all of us. We are fierce. We are the worst of the worst here. We will tear you apart." And what allowed her to stay breathing was her immense love and trust, that quality that keeps us wakeful and present. And she was basically like, "Look, I don't want to do what I'm about to do. You can just surrender. You can just surrender to my love." And the demons were like, "No, we're just going to rule. We're just going to eat every day and be just whatever we want to be." And she's like, "Okay, fine." So she grows to be 10,000 feet tall. And out of her third eye springs the aspect of her known as Kali. And the aspect of her known as Kali is that fierce mother, and she has a sword. And Kali would cut off the heads of the demons, but one of the reasons why the masculine couldn't conquer the demons was because they were cutting off the head, and then every time blood would fall to the ground, more demons would spring up. So it's like that way that hate creates more hate, violence begets violence. And they just couldn't figure it out. They're like, "We're trying," and it just keeps more demons. So then Kalima, what she does is she cuts off the head, and with her tongue, she licks up the blood before it hits the ground. And in that way, what gets to happen is the head that gets cut off is the ego of the demon, is the illusion that has hardened around the raw energy of
Mm.
creation and formed some sort of confused relationship with what it belongs to. So she cuts that off, and the soul of the demon, the actual essence of the demon, is able to return to the love of the mother. And it's said that when that happens, the demon lets out a cry of ecstasy as its head gets cut off, because it's like, "Oh, I get to go home to like the love of the mother." So eventually Kali, in her ferocity, her presence, and her love that literally digests the blood, takes it in, makes it something else, breathes, liberates the understanding, the perspective of the demon to be one once again with the mother. Through that, she's able to turn the battlefield into a wild field of flowers, where the
Wow.
demons would have been, flowers grow instead. And the last thing that happens, the bison, the main kind of leader of the demons, walking up to the mother, and he bows to her, and he's dying. He knows he's dying, and he asks for her forgiveness, and he praises her, "Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma." And it's in that moment that she is able to love even him, even the worst demon in the world, or it is able to love the worst, most ferocious demon, and he's able to release his confusion, his limited understanding of what he belongs to. He's also able to return to the mother. The way he got there was hard because there was violence and confusion, but always we can return to the mother. And so Durga goes back to the, male deities, and she's like, "All right, did my job, you know, call on me. Like, those who call on me, I'll always be there. I am the mother. I can be anywhere. So those who are in devotion, I'm with you. I got you. Relate to me and I'll be there for you." And then
Wow.
releases. And she's like, "Okay, now you dudes go do what you're gonna do."
There's so much I want to respond to, and a lot of thoughts and pings as you were sharing that epic, like truly epic story and a very archetypal story. I think a lot of people are familiar with Kali, right? She's a goddess that she takes anything we don't need. She takes any shadow, anything we're ready to get rid of, especially the darkest, the shame, the guilt, whatever that may be. And there's so much symbolism in that story, right? We always return to the mother. We literally return to the earth. When our lives are over here, we go into the earth. We're made from the earth and from the stardust.
Mm,
So there's so much to say. I think one of the big threads that's in the story and that you alluded to earlier, and definitely something I want to speak about, is how the shadow or how the stuff we don't want actually becomes the best compost or the best fertilizer for the rose garden or the wildflowers.
mm,
And I had this epiphany actually before our call. I was listening to some music and listening to this powerful song, and all these songs are about heartbreak.
mm,
And just thinking about it, how so much of the best music comes from heartbreak. It's like we need the suffering, or we need the difficulty, or we need the shadow, whatever it is, we need the rupture or the skinned knee to find our power, to find our voice, to make art, to
mm,
evolve, to transform, to self-actualize, I think is the
mhm,
one that really strikes home for me. In my language, the podcast is called Heaven on Earth and is really about being in our multidimensional selves and living a multidimensional life beyond the three dimensions. And so if you can understand the three dimensions or the duality or contrast that we have on Earth, and start to work with them, you can actually start to transcend them. I think that's also what you were beginning to speak into a little bit at the end of the story about the bison coming back and returning to the mother and seeing past his own darkness in a way for me that is wholeness, that is transcending the duality. And being a little bit
mm,
more theoretical with how I explain it, but there's a really important theme here about suffering being the soil, about difficulties being our initiations. One of the
mm,
biggest initiations on this earth is childbirth. I've heard from so
yeah,
many women about how that experience just brings them into their full power, their creative power. Also, the contrast between the pain and the ecstasy of like meeting your child and birthing a human into the world on the other side of that
yeah,
pain. So, maybe we could speak into this idea of accepting the contrast and initiations, and maybe even if you want to elaborate on the the symbolism of Kali who eats up the bad stuff that uses
mhm,
it as fuel or compost for the flower garden.
yeah, yeah, I'd say with Kali, what's so cool about her is she does say, like, give me it, I'll eat it, and not only will I eat it, but I'll take pleasure in it. I'll take joy. The blood I lap up, it gives me life because she's the energy connected to that recycling aspect. Feed me, feed me with your prayer and your devotion. And if that prayer and devotion is you giving over to me, here, Ma, you take it. It's too big for me. You take it, eat it. To trust that there's an energy there, cosmic energy, life energy in the unseen that is fueled by that responds by generating energy in our lives and in the world. someone who finds their path to taking what was really hard for them, a wound, a traumatic experience, and finds their way into that being a gift they share that gives them life force, that empowers them, that makes beauty for their life and for others. That's so powerful. That's such a gift to everyone involved in that, to turn something that's really hard for us and creates a hard experience in our bodies, in our relational life, to we can use that word that's very popular, alchemize, transmute, compost, for that to become, like you said, a gift that gives. That I think is also the path of the embodied teacher, or the embodied, we can call it the Chiron. You know, how do we take what's hard for us and offer from that place of accepting it to the point where we've learned from it and turned it into something that is not just something that lives in pain in our body, but a gift that lives in beauty in the world.
Yeah, so for anyone following, when Erin referenced Chiron, Chiron is a mythological character that embodies this idea of the wounded healer, which is another archetype. And so I would say for everyone, and actually there's an asteroid called Chiron that we read in birth charts in astrology. When I do archetypal astrology readings, I always check out where everyone has a Chiron placement. But but I think what you're naming, and I want to share with people, is that these initiations always give us a chance to do alchemy and create gold and offer gifts to other people, and certainly for anyone who's on the path and sees this as an like wants to be a teacher or a healer. That's the obvious case, but
Yeah.
I would say anyone really who is able to alchemize or transmute their suffering into beauty, into art. You see it all the time, right? In war-torn regions. It's some of
Mm,
the, I don't know how to describe it, maybe some of the most efficient or powerful way to master energy or work with energy or have impact in this world, I think.
mm, mhm. Yeah. I'm thinking back to your that point about not personal, but intimate, and that being the connection to what we've experienced, to our lineages, to our line, the fact that it's never just us alone, and that to me feels like a necessary component of alchemy that we don't always talk about in a independent focused culture, like put on your boots, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, make your way, be your own person. This invitation that I think a lot of us experience to be a singular brand entity and go forward on our path. Oh, and the reality is that no transmutation happens alone. There's always an element of relatedness. There's always an element of connection. Even the artist that's alone in their studio, there's a relationship happening between whomever they were in relational pain with, as well as the relationship to the muse that comes through to create the creative life force. So, what I hope that does is take some of the pressure off of any of us needing to figure out how to be alchemists, or figure out like, dang, this feels really hard. How do I make flowers from this? I'm like dying over here. And the first step that I found is so helpful is to lean into the in it togetherness, which could look like having a group circle you experience things with, having a one-on-one container, having a dear trusted friend who sees the layers of you, going into the imaginal, which is something we can do, calling
Right.
forward the two mothers. That baseline of I'm in it together is, I would say, essential for healing, if we're gonna, like, go into, quote, "healing."
I think we've been in healing. We haven't had quotations around it. But yeah, I think we're getting, I like where we're going. I think we're dancing with very practical wisdom. Maybe we can make it even a bit more practical for people. But when I hear that, I think even what you were saying earlier, that these mother figures, the mother herself is relational. She's in relationship to others, and we all are relational, whether we have conditioning or a pattern of wanting to go it alone. We live in a Western society that's very individualistic. And my intention is not to make that wrong, but the truth is, no one's doing anything alone. I've done a ton of ancestral healing. Guess what? My ancestors were present and involved with that, right? Even now,
Yeah.
I talk about this in other episodes, whether you're aware or conscious of it or not, we all have spirit guides. We have teams of people, whether it's our ancestors or not, whoever it is, people is a funny way of putting it. We have spiritual support and union. And I would say this isn't the focus of our conversation today, but it is very present throughout my podcast that now in this particular time on earth, in these years where I believe there's a huge reckoning and a lot of healing happening, we have more support than ever before. So I want to make this more practical. And I
Mm,
also want to acknowledge that we're talking about the unseen realms, right? You use the
yeah.
language that I relate to as well, imaginal realms. So earlier on in this podcast, I talked about how I met the Great Mother, the Divine Mother, in lucid dreaming in the imaginal realms. These are
Mm,
all experiences I've had, at least, and I'm sure you do as well, without psychedelics. So this is
yeah.
available to people. I've actually never taken psychedelics just because I haven't, and I've seen all sorts of things in the imaginal realms or in the shamanic realms. Even when Erin was alluding to the underworld or the proverbial underworld or whatever we want to call it, academically or not, for people who are familiar with the language of shamanism, that's the lower world. This is very accessible to all of us. And I think that no matter what route you take or what language you choose, more and more people are awakening to these resources. And maybe I'll try and say it one other way. On my healing journey, when I'm healing a wound that's very, very intimate, because it didn't start with me, because there's an epigenetic component or an ancestral component, or it's something I inherited, right? Inheritance isn't just money, it's DNA, it's wounding, it's family constellations, we inherit a lot. We inherit a lot of gifts. We inherit a lot of gifts and a lot of strength and a lot of power and maybe even some destiny. I feel that I've inherited some destiny from my lineage. And there is
Mm,
also difficult experiences or trauma, small t trauma, big T trauma. But what I really want to say is, even on my healing journey with that stuff, because it didn't start with me, I also have a ton of support. Maybe I'm getting
yeah.
a little bit further out there, but I think it's important to share because I think for me, the mother archetype has been a huge part of my healing journey and meeting my big self,
Mm,
being in my big self or my mature self or mature feminine, actually. And
mm,
so we're not alone. There's different ways we could describe it, but we're accessing a field. We're accessing a higher power. You might say we're accessing a consciousness. I don't know
mm.
if you relate to that.
I do relate to it. I also, along with that, there's, um there's a feeling state in the body and a physiological experience that happens, like from the dilation of our pupils to the rate of our heart to how the communication between organ systems is going, the level of tension and release that we're experiencing. There's a difference in that physiological experience as well as an emotional tone and a thought pattern
Right.
that we access when we're in that sense of in it together versus when we're in the sense of in it alone or in it against. And so I love what you said about like this is available to everyone. And what it brought up for me was, yeah, it's available and it's happening all the time. Like we are experiencing those physiological states, and that's where the agency comes in. Because for those of us who can really access that in it togetherness through a relationship with the unseen, I feel my ancestors, I feel my guides, I feel or those of us who are like, well, that feels a little far away. But what I do know is that when I'm feeling upset and I go next to my dog and I stay there a little longer, something shifts and I can open to that love and support.
I love that. So let's maybe continue on that thread and talk about some practical ways to access these gifts. So, one that I'm hearing you say so clearly is first of all, self awareness. Am I in connection or disconnection right now? So, we can try on different
Yeah.
language for it. Am I in fear or am I in love? Am I in a state of rupture or disconnection or connection? Really, nervous system regulation or just identifying, okay, am I in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Okay, I'm not totally resourced right now. And whether
Mm.
you pause in that moment and use our number one resource, which is our lungs and our breath, or have a cup of water, or just that little bit of awareness and move towards your dog or looking at something beautiful. I do that a lot when I teach and I guide
Mm.
meditations. I ask people to look at something beautiful in their surroundings before they come back into the screen. An awareness of your
Mhm.
own energy field, attention span, capacity, I think
Mhm.
is the number one personal power or agency.
I agree. There's in the kind of nervous system speak that I I've learned, there's this place called falter, and it's right between feeling safe and feeling threat. It's like when we all have tells. Like one of my tells for me is I'll notice the rate at which I'm thinking and the quality of my thoughts is often what I notice first, and then it's my body. For some people, it's like, I just have this contraction, and what is going on with me? If we set the intention of like, I wanna notice when I start to tip into that orientation that feels in it alone or in it against, that can be really helpful because sometimes we can have the breath or the drink of water or close our eyes and see the first mother come in. We can do that before we get to that place where we're in what is sometimes called the whirlpool of threat.
The whirlpool of threat, you said?
Yeah, which means that like because of the way we're designed, that our bodies are designed to feel threat from physical. It's like the translation for our bodies is that physical harm. There might be physical harm to us done. That's the sort of design of the nervous system. It's like there's either safety or there's physical harm. And the way that has come to be interpreted by us modern humans is like existential harm, relational harm, all sorts of things. But the physiological translation is like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta fight. I gotta play dead because my survival is
Yes.
challenged. So when we get into the whirlpool of threat, it means we're in a place where that threat is just turned on, and the intersecting of that threat state, it I would even argue needs to happen in some sort of relational context. Like the whole thing of being able to change your emotional state on your own, I don't even know if that exists because it's relating to something else is the thing that's like, if someone's caught in a whirlpool and someone else grabs onto a tree and sticks their hand in, they can help that person, like pull themselves out from the whirlpool. Someone trying to fight the quicksand and get out on their own, I don't know if that ever happens, actually.
Okay, we're back after a minor technological interruption. And we're going to veer towards the end of our time together. But before we do, I did want to really leave everyone with some practical tools that can help them for wherever they're at. So I think we started to talk about some simple techniques of just being aware. Erin shared about how she'll notice her thoughts first. Other people might notice some contraction in their body. Um, it can be shortness of breath, whatever it is in that phase, perhaps before you're in full fight or flight, but just noticing what I would normally call like crunchiness in my relationships or
Mhm.
crunchiness
Mm.
in how I'm relating to someone. I think the self-awareness of what state you're in and how resourced you are is probably like the most practical we can get. And learning
Yeah,
to identify the state without any judgment, without any stories, without any analysis, just
yeah,
pure presence and awareness.
yeah. There's a really great tool that I'd love to we could even do it right now. It's very quick. It's called the inner gauge, and, a woman named Lena George, who created the Emotion Hygiene Alliance, she taught me this practice. So it's very simple, and you can do it when you start to feel crunchy or even just as, like, a check-in anytime. So what you do is you close your eyes, and if you're listening to this podcast driving, maybe wait to do that part of it. But you imagine that there's like a sliding like gauge in front of you, and you can put like 1 over to your left and 10 over to your right. And 1 is like the worst you've ever felt in your life. Just like it's a hard spot. And 10 is the best you could possibly ever feel. And then you just see where on that gauge you are. Maybe it's, I'm kind of 5. I'm kind of like just pretty neutral. Or actually, I'm feeling quite, maybe I'm up to like a 7. Or it's been a really hard day and I'm in that 4, 3. I hope I don't get to 2, but maybe I will. So you just sort of see, okay, where am I? And then you welcome in a big breath that says, okay, okay, it's okay. And then from there, you can simply open the eyes and we can say, okay, if I'm at a 4, yeah, wow, I am feeling quite crunchy or hot or what have you. Then the following question gets to be, some people ask, what do I need? I like to ask, what would feel nice? What would feel, it's like that first mother. What would feel supportive? Do I need water? Do I just need to lay on the floor? Would it be nice to hug my partner? Then the curious inquiry gets to come from this place of, okay, I am where I am. Now, not to change anything, but just to bring in the support, the buoying of my experience, my system. What could that be? And for every person, it can be many different things. I find the most effective to be the in it togetherness experience. So that could be with an actual human. Can you just hold me for a second? Can you hold my hand? Hey, do you have a chance to talk real quick? Be a dog. It can also be closing the eyes and feeling whether it's the mother or it's another archetype or it's another being. Sometimes for me, it's Nelson Mandela comes in and is like, let's have a little seat and talk about
Of
what's
course,
important.
of course it is.
So that I'd say it's very, very practical. And sometimes even just doing the inner gauge and having a moment
Yeah.
of like self, how do I feel? You're like, oh, I feel better just because I stopped to ask that.
Yeah, I think even just the inner gauge itself, that self-awareness can help you recalibrate just by being
Right.
aware of what state you're in.
Mm,
I think what I would add, definitely reaching for assistance or allyship, whether that's a physical person or conversation, or very much for me in my practice are these figures. I had like a flare up this weekend and I did a beautiful meditation and Kuan Yin appeared. She comes to me in a lot of my journeys. She's
mm,
a beautiful archetype of the divine feminine and even connected to the Great Mother. These people, these resources are available for you. The other big resource for me that I would love to do even a whole nother episode on is plant allies. And for me specifically, and one of the things that drew me to Erin is her middle name, Rose, and her soft feminine. I've been working with the rose for many years now. That is a very ancestral flower and spirit for me. She is such a divine feminine, just spirit. She's a mother spirit. Cacao also is a big plant ally for me. Cacao is also mother cacao, mother rose. And for anyone who
mhm,
wants to go deeper or build this allyship or go deeper in an existing allyship with any of these plants or products, there's a beautiful oracle deck from Rebecca Campbell I love called the Rose Oracle that I still work with. I've worked with
mm,
for years that brought this gentle mother into my life. So whether you
mm.
pause to have a sip
Beautiful.
of water or light a candle or pull a card or even go into a deep meditation, that's all available for you, for us, anytime. And if you want more resources, I would love to recommend Erin and her gifts. I received so much from Erin in a few short days and in her dance workshops for people who are in LA or Ojai. But Erin has an upcoming container that we wanted to share more about. So, Erin, I'll throw it to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I want to look into that deck. I haven't heard of that one, but it's so, so beautiful. This next iteration of my kind of work in the world, service in the world, is really born out of the last few years of I think it's very aligned with stepping into this question of mother and this point in my maturity that I'm currently at that's really interested in how the spiritual path gets to be yes about each of us our individual awakening but also really gets us to connect us to life to the world to the earth to each other. And I think for a while early on, it was very much a like, I want to be awakened. I want to be free. I want to, experience this consciousness. And I didn't really realize that I wasn't. I wasn't as satisfied on my spiritual path because I was missing the part that is so life-giving, which is the generosity. Like, how can I be of service to the liberation and the awakening and the love, of everyone? And so this offering called Refuge is has come through, and it's really for those who feel that call of, like, I want to create refuge in my body, a sanctuary, a space. I wanna be that for myself and for the world. It's very aligned with, in Buddhism, there's the Bodhisattva vow, which is orienting towards consciousness, awakening, spirituality as, like, the motivation for it is to serve all beings. May all beings be free, and may my awakening be a kind of like sweet cherry on top of the real thing, which is all of us together moving into experience of love and safety and connection. So it's nervous system practices. There's some archetypal exploration. There's some my path in hatha yoga and tantra. We work with some chanting and some of the, the pantheon found in the yoga tradition. Um, Practices, so each there be a lot of the embodiment that I teach, the guided dance and the nidra, the yoga asana, all of that in the name of resourcing, seeing clearly, and utilizing the agency we have to do what we said, turn what's really hard into a way to feed and nourish the world. Um, And it's a community journey, so it's different than the one-on-one work because we're really working with kinship, sangha, togetherness. Um, so that launches in the actual cohort. It's a seasonal experience, so each season there's a place we go to. The first one is going to be around this relationship between terror and pleasure, or what is sometimes called, that I gotta get out of here state, and awe and wonder and the sort of movement from one to the other through the body, through connection with the sacred. Each cohort is about 2.5 months, and during that time, we're going on a journey, educational, spiritual, relational, and I'm really excited because it feels kind of like a training and kind of like a school and kind of like a practice space. Um, but my hope is that it can really be a resource that can easily integrate into someone's life and that they get to be a part of and also experience the benefits of being a refuge.
Sounds amazing. So I'll definitely link to that below. And I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your enormous presence and devotion and dedication to showing up as a teacher and guide and healer for others. Yeah, I'm so excited to share you with everyone else.
Oh, thank you, sister. So good to be with you. I feel like we could just do this for hours and hours and hours. There's so,
Definitely,
so many doors to open.
definitely. Sending you so much love.
Thank you, dear.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.